When it comes to money, one of the greatest lessons you can ever learn is that money is a tool, not a master. The danger for so many people is that they flip that relationship upside down. Instead of being in control of their money, they allow money to control them. They let it dictate their moods, their decisions, even their sense of worth. But here's the truth: money is neutral. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have morals. It will take on the personality of the one who holds it. In wise hands, it builds schools, feeds families, and creates opportunity. In careless hands, it fuels destruction, stress, and regret. When I was younger, I thought money was the main thing. I chased it hard. But soon I discovered that when you run after money as if it were the prize itself, you end up exhausted and still empty. Money cannot provide meaning. It can only magnify the meaning you've already created. That's why the real question is not, how much money can I make, but what purpose will I give the money I make? If you don't decide, the money will decide for you. And usually, it won't be in your favor. Think of a hammer. It can build a house or it can break a window. The tool itself isn't good or bad. It depends on the user. Money's the same way. Some use it to create freedom and choice, while others use it to dig themselves deeper into stress and debt. The difference isn't in the money, it's in the mindset. I often tell people, let your goals drive your use of money, not your impulses. Want to build wealth? Direct your money into investments. Want to build security? Direct it into savings and insurance. Want to build meaning? Direct it into giving and contribution. But never let money sit in the driver's seat. If you do, you'll find yourself going places you never wanted to go. At the end of the day, money should be your servant, not your master. Put it to work for your vision, and it will reward you. Fail to control it, and it will control you. It's easy to think that the solution to all your problems is just more money. If I could just get a raise, if I could just win the lottery, if I could just close that one big deal, then everything would change. But here's what I've learned. It's not the money that makes you wealthy. It's the person you become in the process of learning how to handle money. Because if you don't grow into the kind of person who can manage wealth, money will slip right through your hands no matter how much of it you make. I've met people who came into sudden wealth, inheritance, a lucky opportunity, or even a big paycheck, and within a short time, it was all gone. Why? Because the money arrived, but the maturity, the discipline, the education, and the character to keep it hadn't. Wealth isn't just an amount in your bank account. It's a reflection of the habits, the mindset, and the personal development you carry inside. If you don't build the foundation, the house won't stand when the storm comes. Early in my career, I thought success was about making as much money as possible. But a wise mentor told me something that changed my thinking forever. If you want more, you must become more. Income seldom exceeds personal development. At first, that stung a little, but then it made perfect sense. You don't attract wealth by chance. You attract it by the kind of person you are becoming. If your skills, mindset, and habits remain small, even if you stumble into a fortune, it will eventually shrink down to match who you are. But if you grow, if you invest in learning, discipline, and character, even a small beginning can multiply because you're now the person who knows what to do with it. So, don't just chase money. Chase growth. Learn the principles of saving, investing, and discipline. Build resilience, emotional control, and patience. Develop the capacity to say no when everyone else is saying yes. Because the money will come. It always does for those who stay diligent. But if you haven't grown into the person who can handle it, you won't keep it. In the end, money doesn't make you wealthy. Who you become makes you wealthy. Build yourself and the wealth will follow. I learned early in life that wages will make you a living, but profits will build you a fortune. There's nothing wrong with wages. They put food on the table, they pay the bills, and they give you security. But if all you ever rely on is wages, you'll always be limited, because wages are tied to hours. You work an hour, you get paid. You stop working, the money stops flowing. That's a fine start, but it's not the path to freedom. The true key is to find a way to make profits, because profits have no ceiling. Think of it this way. If you work 8 hours a day for someone else, that's the limit of your earnings. But when you create something of your own, whether it's a business, an idea, or an investment, it can work for you 24 hours a day. And once you've had a taste of profit, you'll never want to go back to only wages. Now, I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow. Wages provide stability, and we all need that. But use that job as the foundation to build something more. Maybe it's an investment account where you begin buying small pieces of ownership in companies. Maybe it's starting a small business on the side, selling something you believe in. Maybe it's creating intellectual property, a book, a course, or a product that can keep paying you long after the work is done. Whatever the path, the principle remains the same. Wages support you. Profits free you. Profits are also a teacher. They force you to think differently. Instead of asking, how many hours can I work? You start asking, how can I add value? How can I serve more people? How can I solve bigger problems? Those questions lead to creativity, leadership, and eventually wealth. So keep your wages, but start building profits. Because wages will pay the bills, but profits will change your life. I often tell people that money is an amplifier. It simply makes you more of what you already are. If you're careless with a little, you'll be careless with a lot. If you waste $100, you'll waste 1,000. Wealth doesn't start with a big paycheck or a lucky break. It starts with the discipline to manage whatever amount you already have in your hands. The habits you build when your income is small are the same habits that will follow you when your income grows. When I was just starting out, I thought the problem was that I didn't have enough money. I told myself, if only I had more, things would be different. But I quickly learned that wasn't true. When I earned a little more, my spending increased right alongside it. The problem wasn't the size of the income, it was the lack of discipline in how I managed it. That was a tough lesson, but it changed my entire perspective. So here's the real key. Practice managing small amounts of money as if they were large amounts. If you have $10, set aside $1. If you earn $100, discipline yourself to save or invest a portion before spending the rest. Create the habit of assigning every dollar a purpose, even when there aren't many dollars to assign. The wealthy didn't wake up one day with millions and then figure out how to handle it. They became wealthy because they learned how to handle $10, then $100, then $1,000, and the habit scaled with their income. Think of it like training. If you can't lift 20 pounds, you'll never be ready to lift 200. The strength you need must be built gradually. The same is true of financial strength. If you can't resist spending every dime you have today, no windfall tomorrow will save you. In fact, it will only magnify the problem. That's why so many lottery winners end up broke. Because sudden money doesn't create discipline. It exposes the lack of it. So the secret is simple. Treat every dollar as important, no matter how small. Because how you handle small money is the best predictor of how you'll handle big money. One of the oldest and simplest rules of wealth is also the one most often ignored. Spend less than you earn. It sounds so basic, so obvious, that many people brush it off. But the truth is, this principle is the foundation of financial independence. If you don't master this, nothing else will work. You can't invest what you don't keep. You can't build assets with money that's already spent. I remember early in my life when I was earning very little, and yet my expenses always seemed to catch up with me. Every time I got a raise, I thought, now I'll finally be ahead. But what happened? The moment the income rose, the spending rose right with it, sometimes even faster. A nicer car, better clothes, dinners out. Suddenly the increase disappeared, and I was back to living paycheck to paycheck. It wasn't until I truly grasped the discipline of keeping a portion that everything changed. Here's the key. Don't wait to see what's left over at the end of the month, because there will almost never be anything left. The wealthy don't treat saving as optional. They treat it as a bill they owe themselves. The very first thing to do when income arrives is to set aside a portion. It doesn't have to be half your paycheck. It could be 10%, even 5%. What matters is the habit. The act of consistently saving before spending trains you to live within your means while steadily building a foundation for wealth. When you learn to save first, you start to see money differently. Suddenly you have a reserve. You're not living on the edge. Emergencies don't break you. Opportunities don't pass you by because you can't afford to act. And here's the interesting thing. The discipline of saving creates a kind of confidence. You begin to control money instead of letting money control you. It's not about deprivation, it's about direction. Spending less than you earn doesn't mean you'll never enjoy life. It means you'll enjoy it with freedom rather than with debt. It's the quiet, steady practice of saving before spending that separates those who build wealth from those who only dream about it. Because no matter what you earn, the secret to wealth always begins the same way. Spend less than you earn and keep a portion for yourself. One of the greatest goals you can set for yourself is to become financially independent. Not dependent on the government, not leaning on family, not waiting for luck to drop something in your lap, but independent, self-reliant, and in control of your financial future. Independence means freedom. It means you wake up each day knowing your livelihood is not dictated by someone else's generosity, circumstances, or a system you can't control. Too many people fall into the trap of dependency. They wait for someone to take care of them. They count on a pension, a program, or even the kindness of others. And while those safety nets may exist, they were never designed to create wealth or freedom. They were built to keep you alive, not to make you thrive. Thriving is your responsibility. Independence is your responsibility. I remember when I first realized this for myself. I thought opportunities were reserved for the lucky, for the connected, or for those born into wealth. But the turning point came when I understood that no one was coming to save me. My future was in my own hands. That moment of ownership was both humbling and liberating. It meant that my results were tied to my discipline, my learning, and my actions, not to external factors beyond my control. Financial independence isn't built overnight. It's a process of consistently making choices that put you in control. It starts with the discipline of saving, of living below your means, of investing in assets that pay you back. It continues with learning, with building new skills, with finding ways to increase your value in the marketplace. And it's strengthened by the mindset that says, I am responsible. I am the captain of this ship. When you become independent, you also free yourself from fear. You're not afraid of losing a job because you've built reserves. You're not crushed by unexpected expenses because you've planned ahead. You don't have to compromise your dreams because you've created a foundation that supports them. Independence means choices. Choices about how you spend your time, where you live, and how you contribute. And the beauty is this: financial independence is not just about money, it's about character. It's about proving to yourself that you can take full responsibility for your life. Because when you stand on your own 2 feet, that's when true freedom begins. Formal education is valuable. It gives you the basics, helps you make a living, teaches you how to navigate the world of work. But if you stop there, you stop short of your potential. The classroom can give you structure, but it won't necessarily give you wealth. True fortune doesn't come from what's taught in school. It comes from the self-education you pursue after the diploma is handed to you. That's where the real difference is made. When I was younger, I believed education ended with the classroom. I thought once you graduated, you were done. But soon I discovered that the people who went the farthest weren't those who simply finished their courses. They were the ones who kept studying long after school was over. They studied money, markets, leadership, communication, influence, and strategy. They read the books most people never picked up. They sought out mentors who had already done what they wanted to do. They didn't wait for information to come to them. They went after it with hunger. Self-education is about turning curiosity into mastery. It's about deciding that you won't settle for the minimum required to get by. You'll go further. You'll dig deeper. You'll expand your mind until new opportunities can't help but appear. And here's the beautiful part. In today's world, the resources are everywhere. A single book can compress 30 years of experience into a few hundred pages. A single conversation with the right mentor can save you years of mistakes. The cost is minimal. The return is massive. I've often said that if you want to change your income, change your philosophy. And how do you change your philosophy? By learning, by pouring ideas, insights, and wisdom into your mind until it shifts the way you see the world. The wealthy make it a habit. They don't just study once in a while. They build a lifestyle of self-education. So, formal education will prepare you to earn a living, but it's the extra mile of self-education that prepares you to build a fortune. Don't leave your financial future to chance or to what you learned years ago. Keep studying, keep seeking, keep growing, because wealth isn't built in the classroom, it's built in the daily commitment to keep learning long after the bell has rung. Wealth follows the same timeless rhythm as farming. You can't rush a harvest, and you can't shortcut the process. First comes the planting, then the nurturing, and only later comes the reward. Too many people want to skip straight to the harvest. They want the fruit without the patience of planting and the discipline of tending. But life doesn't work that way. If you don't put seed in the ground today, you'll have nothing to gather tomorrow. When I was a young man, I was guilty of this very mistake. I wanted success quickly, and when it didn't arrive, I grew frustrated. But then a mentor explained something to me. If you want corn in the fall, you plant corn in the spring. You don't complain in August, because nothing is growing if you never planted in April. That hit me hard. From then on, I understood that wealth, just like farming, is the reward for consistent effort over time. Think of every dollar you save, every skill you build, every relationship you cultivate as a seed. Each one has the potential to multiply, but only if you give it time. If you invest wisely, don't expect it to double tomorrow. Give it years. If you start a business, don't expect it to be profitable overnight. Give it seasons of work, trial, and adjustment. The law of the harvest says you will reap what you sow, but it also says you will reap later than you sow and more than you sow. That's why planting is so powerful. It sets up a future you can't yet see. And here's the key. Nurture your seeds. A farmer doesn't plant and walk away. He waters, he weeds, he protects the field. The same is true in wealth. You have to manage your investments, care for your health, maintain your relationships, and stay disciplined. Neglect ruins the harvest as surely as failing to plant. So remember, wealth is not built in a rush. It's built in seasons. Plant now, tend daily, and be patient. If you do the work in spring and summer, the harvest will take care of itself. One of the greatest temptations on the road to wealth is the promise of getting rich quick. It's dressed up in many forms, flashy opportunities, too good to be true investments, or someone guaranteeing results with no real effort required. But here's the truth. Wealth that comes quickly often leaves just as quickly. Easy come, easy go. Real fortune isn't built on shortcuts. It's built on discipline, patience, and a strong foundation that can withstand the storms. When I was in my 20s, I fell for one of these quick money ideas. Someone promised that if I just put in a small amount, I'd triple my money in no time. It sounded exciting, and I didn't want to miss out. But within months, the whole thing collapsed, and I was left with nothing but regret. That experience taught me something valuable. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually isn't. And if it looks like wealth without work, it's not wealth, it's a trap. The wealthy don't chase fast wins, they build steady progress. Think about the farmer again. You don't plant corn today and eat it tomorrow. You plant, you wait, and you let time and nature do their work. That's how investing works, how building a business works, and how developing yourself works. Quick fixes can't replace the process of steady growth. Now, some people do stumble into fast money. Maybe they win the lottery or get lucky in the market. But have you noticed how often it doesn't last? Many lottery winners end up broke within a few years because they had money without maturity, wealth without wisdom. They never built the character, the systems, or the mindset to sustain it. That's why slow wealth is better than sudden wealth. Slow wealth shapes you, disciplines you, and teaches you the habits that keep it. So be careful when you hear promises of overnight riches. Don't let greed or impatience cloud your judgment. Build your wealth on the things that last: skills, assets, habits, and patience. Because when you take the time to do it right, your fortune doesn't just arrive, it stays. One of the most important disciplines you'll ever develop is learning to pay yourself first. Most people do the opposite. They pay the landlord, the grocer, the bank, the utility company, and then if something is left over, they might save a little. But here's the problem. There's rarely anything left over. Life has a way of expanding to fill the whole paycheck. That's why the wealthy do it differently. They treat savings and investments like mandatory bills. The first check they write is to themselves. I remember when I first learned this principle. At the time, I thought it sounded impossible. How could I save first when there were so many bills piling up? But I decided to try. I started small, just 10% of my income. Every payday, before I paid anyone else, I set aside my portion. At first it seemed insignificant, but over time, it grew, and not just in numbers, it grew in the confidence and discipline it built inside me. Paying myself first sent a powerful message. I was no longer working just for others, I was also working for my own future. Think about it this way. Every dollar you save and invest is an employee you've hired. That dollar goes out to work for you. And if you keep it invested wisely, it works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it never asks for a vacation. Over time, the more employees you send out, the more income they bring back. That's how financial independence is built, not by what you earn, but by what you keep and put to work. Most people say, I'll save when I make more money. But it doesn't work like that. If you don't save a little when you earn a little, you won't save when you earn a lot. It's not about the amount, it's about the habit. The discipline of paying yourself first trains you to live on less than you make and to prioritize your future over your impulses. So let me urge you, make it a rule, starting with your very next paycheck. Even if it's $5, put something aside before you pay anyone else. Build the habit now. Because if you can't pay yourself first, you'll always be working for someone else's fortune, never your own. Life and money both move in seasons. Just like nature, there's a time to sow and a time to reap, a time to grow and a time to guard. The key is to recognize which season you're in and act accordingly. Too many people try to harvest before they've planted, or they plant and never nurture the seeds, or they harvest but don't protect the crop. Wealth requires rhythm, patience, and timing. There's a season to learn. This is where you prepare the soil of your mind. You study books, listen to mentors, ask questions, and develop the habits that will one day sustain your wealth. If you're in your early years, this season is critical. Don't rush past it. Fill your mind with ideas, strategies, and philosophies about money. The more you learn here, the richer your future harvest will be. Then there's a season to invest. This is when you take what you've learned and begin planting seeds. You put money into assets that grow, whether it's stocks, real estate, or your own business. You don't see results overnight, but you know that if you keep planting consistently, those seeds will sprout. Think of this season as an act of faith. You're committing resources today for a reward tomorrow. Eventually, there comes a season to harvest. This is when your years of saving, investing, and planting begin to pay off. The dividends, the profits, the rental income, the growth of your business, this is the fruit of your discipline. But here's the mistake many make. They harvest too early or consume too much of the harvest, leaving nothing to reinvest. A wise harvester takes some for enjoyment, but saves plenty to plant again. Finally, there's a season to protect. Just as a farmer builds fences to guard the field, you must build systems to guard your wealth. Insurance, diversification, emergency funds, and sound financial planning, all of these protect you from losing in a single storm what took years to grow. Protecting doesn't mean living in fear. It means respecting the effort it took to create what you have. So let me ask, do you know what season you're in right now? Because when you align your actions with your season, money begins to work in harmony with your life. But if you misjudge the season, you'll either rush or stagnate. Remember, every season matters, and if you master them, wealth will not just pass through your hands, it will stay and grow. One of the greatest traps people fall into is buying luxury too soon. The car, the watch, the vacation, the fancy clothes. They want to look rich before they actually are. But the truth is, if you spend your income on lifestyle before you own equity, you'll always be chasing appearances instead of building real wealth. Assets first, lifestyle second. That's the rule. See, luxury should never be bought with sweat alone. It should be purchased with dividends, with profits, with cash flow from assets you own. If you buy luxury too early, you're eating the seed before it ever has a chance to become a harvest. I remember when I first started making a little extra money, I wanted to upgrade everything. My car, my furniture, my wardrobe. But a mentor said to me, don't buy the car yet. Buy an asset that pays you, and let that asset buy the car. That shifted everything for me. I stopped trading my labor for shiny things and started buying things that produced income. Later, when those assets grew, I could enjoy luxuries guilt-free because they were paid for by investments, not by depleting my hard-earned income. The wealthy understand this discipline. They delay the pleasure of lifestyle until they have ownership. They buy stocks, real estate, or businesses first, and only when those investments begin producing do they let themselves enjoy luxuries. Think about it. Would you rather drive a luxury car paid for by your labor or one paid for by your dividends? The first drains you, the second sustains you. This is why so many high earners still stay broke. They confuse income with wealth. They make good money, but instead of buying assets, they buy status. And what happens when the job ends or the income slows? The lifestyle collapses because it had no foundation. But if you build equity first, you create a foundation that keeps producing no matter what happens with your job, your business, or the economy. So the principle is simple, but it requires discipline. Every time you're tempted to buy something for show, ask yourself, do I own enough assets yet to justify this? If the answer is no, put your money into equity. Build the base, then enjoy the luxuries. Because when your lifestyle is funded by your assets, not your labor, that's when you'll know you're truly wealthy. Generosity is one of the most misunderstood principles of wealth. Many people think that giving will make them poorer, but the truth is the opposite. Giving creates growth. When you give, you're not depleting your resources. You're activating a law of abundance that says, there's more where that came from. It's a signal you send not only to the world, but to yourself, that you're living from a place of sufficiency, not scarcity. I remember when I had very little and someone challenged me to give. At first, I resisted. I thought, how can I give when I don't have enough myself? But I learned something profound. If you only give when it feels convenient, you'll never build a habit. Start with what you have, no matter how small. If it's $1, give a dime. If it's your time, share an hour. The act of giving stretches you. It takes you from survival thinking into growth thinking. And that shift, that expansion, changes how you see opportunities, how you connect with people, and how you position yourself for abundance. Wealthy people give strategically. They know money is not just for accumulation, but for circulation. Money has to move, just like blood in the body. If you hoard it, it stagnates. But if you give, invest, and circulate it wisely, it multiplies. I've seen it happen over and over again. A person gives, and doors open. They give, and relationships deepen. They give, and their own sense of purpose expands. And giving isn't only about money. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give is your attention, your encouragement, your mentorship. I've seen lives transformed, not because someone wrote a big check, but because they gave a word of hope or shared a lesson that redirected a person's path. But when you do have money, use it to make a difference. Fund ideas, support causes, help someone get started. The satisfaction you receive from giving will often exceed the satisfaction of spending on yourself. So make generosity part of your wealth plan. Don't wait until you're rich to give. Practice it now. If you build wealth without giving, you'll end up empty. But if you give as you grow, you'll discover that money is not just a means to freedom, but also a tool for impact. Because when you give to grow, you don't just build wealth, you build a life that's truly abundant.